We're now joined by Leon Louw, Executive Director of the Free Market Foundation, and he's here to debunk some widely held beliefs. A very good morning to you, Leon.
Good morning to you. Good to be with you.
Let's start with some that are most applicable to the South African economy and the current obsession with job creation. To that standout is that labour-intensive industries, you say, don't in fact create jobs, and that jobs can't in fact be created. Can you explain
yes,
that?
you know, we have these things that are called memes, sort of axioms, things people just believe are true, and they assume somewhere someone has done some research and demonstrated them to be true, and that just isn't the case. Now, for example, take labour-intensive industry, this sort of trendy, sexy idea that what you want is lots and lots of people doing fewer and fewer things. Well, that's called being primitive and backward. That's living in the caves. Advancement, progress, modernization is having less people doing things. You want jobs to be less intensive. What you want is more things being done, but each one of them being done by less people. That's progress and advancement. The idea of labour intensivity is actually regressive and saying we should go backwards, and you know, the simple way to be labour intensive is to destroy machinery and technology and factories and build dams with our hands instead of with machinery.
Is your theory based on empirical data?
Oh yes, well, firstly, the old Luddite idea was that machinery caused unemployment, technology causes unemployment, which is simply and obviously, it's quite obviously not true, because highly labour-intensive countries have full employment or have more employment, more people employed than less technology intensive. In other words, countries that do not have labour intensivity are the countries that are rich, that are advanced, and that have jobs. And what they have is they have advanced jobs. They have jobs of people doing sophisticated, high-tech things with computers and machinery and
Give us an example.
Well, Japan, Europe, all the first world, and you get a country like Mauritius, which is Africa's jewel, that has went from having less than half South Africa's GDP, or quarter actually, in the 1960s, to now being the highest GDP in Africa. And what it's done is gone very, very sophisticated and modern and high-tech. So it's got less labour intensivity, more technology and capital intensivity.
So that's what South Africa should be focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, the current buzzword is job creation in South Africa, but you say jobs can't be created.
Yes, you know, this is another thing. They talk about job creation. If it's like let's make a job, you know, I've got this machine. How many would you like? Here's 6 jobs. Well, this is, of course, nonsense. Jobs exist so long as people have things they want, so long as they're unsatisfied human desires. There are jobs to be done, and the question is that the jobs exist. What we want to do is work out why the people willing to do the job that exists already and the people wanting them to do it aren't getting together. Something is keeping apart the people who have a need and the people who want the income. And that is, of course, the question to ask, not how to create jobs, but how to stop, how to discontinue preventing people doing the jobs that already exist.
Another topical, one of your theories that is quite topical is that of localization, in the fact that you say cheap imports can in fact spur job creation, and this is quite relevant in light of Massmart, which is now entering the market with Walmart by its side, and of course Massmart releasing their numbers today.
Yes, I don't particularly have an affection for Massmart or Walmart or anyone else, but just let's understand something that is often forgotten in this discourse is anyone who imports anything, Woolworths, Pick n Pay, stuff you're wearing, you know, the pen in your hand, whatever it might be, all of these imports are possible only because someone else has already exported. In other words, what Walmart or Pick n Pay or whatever would do is they buy foreign exchange for someone who has successfully, competitively exported and earned the foreign exchange. Now, why do we earn foreign exchange? We earn foreign exchange in order to import. That's the sole purpose of it. You don't want as a country to export. Well, that's just giving other people your things. What you want as a country is to import. You want to maximize imports. You want to maximize the number of things you get from the rest of the world, and you do that by the people who successfully export. And what happens is that we put wine on ships that come from the Hex River Valley in the West Cape. The ships sail off into the sunset over the horizon into the Indian Ocean. A few days later they return, and the wine is converted immaculately into clothing and cars and what have you, in a very strange and mysterious bioconversion that happens at sea, which we provisionally call China. And so that is what happens. And if you stop imports, what you're actually doing is stopping exports. You're stopping exports of what we do well and forcing us to do more things here that we do badly. So what you do when you have foreign trade is you earn money by what you do well, like you earn money by being a broadcaster and a TV star, and then you buy the things you don't do well, like making the shoes you're wearing. You go and buy, you import your shoes and you export your services.
Very flattering, Leon. Let's just look at one more theory, the stimulus, that around the stimulus packages. And of course, there are some hopes now that the Fed will be announcing new stimulus at Jackson Hole, possibly. But you don't think stimulus is good for economic growth. Why?
Well, stimulus is a very strange idea. What happens is the government takes money from people who produce wealth, in other words, people who have not failed, who have been successful, and gives it to people who have failed. So you take money from people who produce wealth and you give it to people who lose wealth, and then you call it stimulus. Now, this is a very strange idea. If you do this enough, if you do it consistently, if you do it completely, if you take all the money from people who produce wealth and you give it all to people who lose wealth, then you will be bankrupt. So the only reason they're not bankrupt is because they do only a little bit of it. So it's like trying to be a little bit pregnant. You can't do that. So what they're doing is they are, and let me just explain something very, very quickly, basic economics. Government can get money from only 4 sources. One is it can make money, and by then increasing the quantity of money compared to everything else, it reduces the value of existing money. So it's the same as taking money, which is why economists talk about inflation tax. In other words, printing money is another way of taxing. The second way is to tax. The third way is to sell things, privatize. And the fourth way is to earn things. Now, governments don't earn money. Everything they do runs at a loss. So stimulus is actually the opposite. It's actually reducing the amount of wealth in the economy, not increasing it.